In 1958, Detroit exploded with ambition to reshape the history of the American automobile. Ford proudly introduced a brand new division, Edsel. It was hailed as the car that would mark a new era, featuring bold styling and groundbreaking technology. Among them, the Edsel Corsair was promoted as the symbol of luxury and power, aiming to rival Cadillac and Buick head-on. But only a short time later, the name Edsel was no longer tied to glory. Instead, it became synonymous with failure. What began as the great hope of a massive corporation turned into one of the most costly mistakes in automotive history. Today, we revisit the 1958 Edsel Corsair, a car that stands as both a shining star and a tragic figure of Detroit's golden age. To understand why the Edsel was created, we have to go back to the mid-1950s. It was the golden age of the American auto industry. After World War II, the middle class grew rapidly, incomes were higher, and the demand for cars also changed. General Motors at that time dominated the market with its multi-brand strategy, ranging from the everyday Chevrolet to the ultra-luxury Cadillac. Ford looked at that success and realized there was a gap in its own product lineup. Between Ford and Mercury, there was still no brand strong enough to compete directly with Oldsmobile, Pontiac, or Buick. To fill that gap, Ford decided to create an entirely new line, Edsel. The car was named after Henry Ford's son, carrying the hope of becoming the missing link in the company's brand hierarchy. Among the Edsel models, the Corsair was positioned as the premium version, more upscale than the Ranger and Pacer, aimed at customers who wanted to step up closer to Mercury. With an enormous investment of $250 million, one of the costliest projects in history at the time, Ford believed the Edsel would become a historic breakthrough. At first glance, the Edsel Corsair left people stunned. The most controversial feature was its upright oval grille. Ford promoted it as a unique design element, a symbol that would go down in history. The idea sounded bold, completely different from the horizontal grilles dominating the market. But in reality, it made many people laugh. Newspapers called it a toilet seat, while others criticized it as odd and lacking elegance. The body was based on a Mercury platform, nearly 220 inches long, covered in chrome from end to end. Along the sides were complex sculpted lines. At the rear, boomerang-shaped tail lights and shiny metal trim added even more detail. Altogether, it created an imposing look, but one that was often described as busy and overdone. Step inside the car, and you immediately saw a cabin filled with luxury touches. Thickly padded seats, available in leather or premium fabric, came in a variety of bright colors. The roof lining, door panels, and carpets were carefully coordinated to create the feel of a moving living room. The most striking feature was the dashboard. Instead of a traditional gear lever, the Corsair was equipped with the Teletouch drive system, with push-button transmission controls placed right in the center of the steering wheel. It was considered modern, futuristic technology, but in practice, it was prone to frequent breakdowns and difficult to repair even for skilled mechanics. Many owners felt both excited and anxious every time they used it. In addition, the dashboard was filled with buttons and switches, offering more functions than most cars of the time. Instead of adding convenience, it left the driver feeling overwhelmed. But the Edsel Corsair drew even more attention because Ford had equipped it with some of the most powerful V8 engines the company offered at the time. You could choose the E400 engine, a 361 cubic inch V8, producing about 303 horsepower. If you wanted more power, there was the E475 engine, displacing 410 cubic inches and delivering 345 horsepower. At that time, cubic inches were not just technical specifications, they were symbols of strength and status. A Corsair with the 410 engine was truly a source of pride on the street. The drivetrain was also heavily promoted by Ford. Along with the smooth 3-speed Cruise-O-Matic, the Corsair offered the Teletouch drive system, an automatic transmission controlled by push buttons on the steering wheel. It sounded very advanced, but as seen in the interior, it lacked reliability. Many owners faced problems where the car would not shift, or the electrical system failed right on the highway. On top of that, the Corsair's large engines consumed a significant amount of fuel. At a time when economic troubles were beginning to appear, high fuel consumption made buyers even more hesitant. Even so, once you sat behind the wheel of the Edsel Corsair, the contradictions became clear. On one hand, the big V8 gave you effortless power. A gentle push on the accelerator sent the car surging forward with authority. The engine's roar filled the cabin, making you feel as if you were controlling a true heavyweight machine. On the other hand, once speed built up, the nearly 2-ton body revealed its weight. The power steering of that era was not yet finely tuned, sometimes lacking feedback and leaving the driver uneasy at higher speeds. On smooth highways, the Corsair felt refined and imposing. But in corners or during sudden maneuvers, balance was lost. Braking was another weakness. Even with power assist, the stopping force was not strong enough for such a massive car, forcing drivers to plan ahead whenever they needed to stop. High fuel consumption made the driving experience even less appealing, especially during a time of economic uncertainty. Buyers expected a modern and comfortable car, but what they received was a mix of strength and inconvenience. And it did not stop with the driving experience. Ford's marketing campaign only raised expectations higher, which led to even greater disappointment. Before the Edsel's release, Ford maintained strict secrecy. They invested tens of millions of dollars in advertising, launched television specials, plastered billboards nationwide, and staged elaborate previews. The official debut in September 1957 was even given a special name, E-Day. Across the country, the public waited for something miraculous. Dealerships were decorated lavishly, guests arrived dressed to impress, and the atmosphere resembled the premiere of a major film. Ford promised that the Edsel would be completely different, offering experiences no other car could. But when the curtain was finally pulled back, many were stunned. Instead of amazement, the dominant reaction was disappointment. The grille was mocked, the interior felt overly complicated, and the supposedly revolutionary technology turned out to be more show than substance. The price was also higher than what people expected for a car meant to sit between Ford and Mercury. To make matters worse, the Edsel appeared just as the American economy entered the 1957 to 1958 recession. Consumers tightened their budgets and were not eager to gamble on a new, expensive, and unfamiliar brand. The combination of inflated expectations and harsh reality turned the Edsel into a shock. Within just a few months, dealership lots filled with unsold cars, while customers walked past them toward more familiar choices. In 1958, the entire Edsel line sold only about 63,000 units, far below the projection of over 200,000. The Corsair, positioned as the premium model, faced even tougher challenges. Its price was not attractive enough to lure buyers away from Cadillac or Buick, while its controversial styling turned middle-class customers away as well. The result was that the Corsair became one of the least popular models in the lineup. The situation did not improve the following year. Ford was forced to cut unprofitable models, and the Corsair was the first to disappear. It was not just a sales failure, but also clear evidence of a miscalculation in market positioning. When looking at the bigger picture, the Corsair was not just an unpopular car. It was a piece that explained why the name Edsel became a symbol of failure in the American auto industry. The mistake did not lie in a single detail, but in the entire strategy Ford built around it. The first issue was positioning. The Corsair was placed in the premium segment, yet it was not luxurious enough to compete directly with Cadillac, nor attractive enough to pull buyers from Buick or Oldsmobile. Customers looked at it and wondered, why take a risk on a new, untested brand when long-established names had already proven their reputation? Next came quality. Small but persistent problems with the electrical system, the teletouch transmission, and uneven build quality caused customers to lose confidence. The Corsair carried technology that was advertised as modern, but in reality, it felt more troublesome than convenient. More importantly, the Edsel was launched in a difficult economic climate. Instead of choosing something unusual, Americans of that era wanted security. The Corsair was therefore like an experiment at the wrong time, and it became a classic example of the lesson that heavy investment does not always guarantee success. When the Edsel name disappeared from the market, it did not simply fade away. Instead, it quickly entered American culture as a symbol of failure, mentioned in books, on television, and even in everyday language. Decades later, Edsel is still used as a metaphor for an ambitious idea executed the wrong way. The Corsair, once the top model of the lineup, became the clearest image of the gap between promise and reality. On comedy shows, the Edsel was often the punchline. In business books, it stood as a textbook case of how overconfidence can ruin a corporation. The Edsel story is still taught in marketing and management classes as a lesson about the importance of market research. Today, more than 60 years later, many have begun to see the Edsel Corsair in a fairer light. In truth, the Corsair was not a completely bad car. It had clear strengths that were overshadowed at the time by media noise and unrealistic expectations. Its interior, though complicated, showed Ford's effort to create a premium experience. Comfortable seats, quality materials, and a well-equipped dashboard reflected genuine attention to detail. Under the hood, the large V8 engines produced impressive power, delivering bursts of performance that many rivals in its class could not match. Interestingly, the very features once considered strange have now become its character. The oval grille, the teletouch system, and the bold interior colors of the 1950s make the Corsair stand out among other classics of the era. With only 1 year of production, surviving Corsairs are rare, and that scarcity adds to their appeal among collectors. At auctions, original examples always attract attention. Prices can range from tens of thousands to more than $70,000 for outstanding restorations. For that reason, whenever a Corsair appears at a car show, it always makes people stop a little longer, not to admire perfection, but to listen to the vivid history it carries with it. The 1958 Edsel Corsair was more than just a car. It reminds us that in automotive history, not every vehicle is remembered for success. Some names are remembered precisely because they raised questions, because they revealed the fine line between ambition and reality. The Corsair stands as proof that innovation always requires courage, but also a true understanding of the market. And sometimes it is the unfinished projects that end up telling the most fascinating stories. What about you? If you had the chance to see a Corsair in person, would you call it a failure or a bold moment in Detroit's history? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring more fascinating stories from the world of classic cars.